outcome. As I told you at the top of the hour, I am really disappointed that Scott Pruitt has left the EPA, but I understand some mistakes were made, but I think that he really did some great things at the agency before he was forced out. And Myron Ebell joins me now, who's director of the Competitive Enterprise Institute Center for Energy and the Environment. Myron, good to have you back on the program.
Good to talk to you, Lars.
Let's talk about some of the positive things Scott Pruitt did at EPA.
Well, he got off to a good start in terms of really implementing the Trump agenda on the EPA. President Trump, during the campaign, made a number of promises, and Scott Pruitt got to work fulfilling those promises to withdraw the various climate rules, including the so-called Clean Power Plan, the Waters of the United States rule, which would have vastly expanded federal jurisdiction in the guise of regulating wetlands. And in fact, the wetlands program is already out of control without the Obama-era Waters of the U.S. rule. And a number of other issues that were in the Trump campaign that are really designed by getting rid of onerous regulations designed to get the economy going again, particularly in resource industries, in manufacturing, and in rural areas. So I think Scott Pruitt did a good job. He in some ways, he let the side down through some careless and I think kind of arrogant personal decisions. But, by and large, I think, he did a good job, and we should congratulate him for it.
It's funny, Myron, that when you say that, because I had the same objections that when you take on the job of getting a cabinet post from a president, I can't imagine, short of being elected president, the honor of being able to serve a president, in a high position like that, and a really meaningful agency. There are lots of cabinet secretaries, but EPA, state, there are a few of them that really rank up there as being very visible to the public and very meaningful to the public. What do you think happens when somebody gets into a position like that, and all of a sudden it's, let's hire some private plane time, let's fly first class? Some of these mistakes that just seem so penny ante when you get right down to it, that it just seems as though, I don't know, the only thing I can compare it to is my own work experience. When you get a good job, you walk in, but you don't immediately start saying, let's spend resources and let's do things that are going to draw a lot of negative attention. And he had to know that President Trump's administration was going to be a magnet for negative attention from an otherwise, liberal mainstream media that was looking to find anything they could find to go after this president. He knew that was one of the risks. What do you think made him ignore those things?
Well, I don't know, and I haven't talked to him about it, but I think, I don't think it's so, he's personally ambitious. He's an elected official. He was Attorney General of Oklahoma, elected. He has a lot of ambition to move into higher office, and I think there's a certain, he's one of the very few EPA administrators who was ever a politician. Christy Todd Whitman was governor of New Jersey, but her time was really up. He's of an age and of an ambition that he hopes to move on. And I think there was a certain sense of entitlement there. And I think he didn't realize what you just said, Lars, which is, okay, we know a lot of these people do things that are sort of, questionable. I don't think he's done anything illegal.
No.
But I think
kind of tone deaf.
Questionable.
Tone deaf.
Yeah, he was tone deaf. I think what he needed to realize is that although everybody does these things, somebody in the Clinton administration told me, I can't tell you how many cabinet secretaries we had to find jobs for their wives. And so that's, but that's the kind of thing that the mainstream media doesn't report when it's somebody that they like, but when it's an orchestrated campaign, and it's not designed to get rid of Scott Pruitt, it's designed to stop the Trump agenda. And I think in that respect, Scott Pruitt didn't serve President Trump very well because he was careless and kind of just a sort of sense of entitlement that, I'm an important person, so of course I get to fly first class. Well, of course, most politicians do, most elected officials do fly first class, but it's because they've saved up a whole lot of points, and the airlines will upgrade them, and they'll bump other people. And they'll get priority in being upgraded, and that's how it works. But so I think good on the substance, not so good on the personal conduct.
Yeah, and maybe the everybody does it explanation is the one, because I can still remember back during Clinton, I was a reporter and a talk show host, and I remember Clinton on one trip took 1,300 staff members to Africa. And you had to explain to people, how in the world can he have that many people? And I said, well, if the president comes and 5 or 6 cabinet secretaries, and every one of them needs half a dozen people, a communications person and a policy person, and I said, then you bring the first lady and she brings 4 or 5 people. I said, you get to 1,300 pretty fast. It's not very defensible, but it's kind of understandable. And I remember even at the time, even though Clinton was treated very favorably, almost as favorably as Obama was, that sensible people said, what in the world? You got to fly 1,300 people all the way around the planet so the president can go to Africa for a series of meetings? That's crazy.
Right. Absolutely.
So, but other things that Pruitt managed to get done, and how long will his legacy last? That is, how many of these things are going to stay done and not be undone?
Well, this is the problem. The Trump campaign promised to do, President Trump during the campaign promised to do a number of things. And a lot of it, as you said, EPA was a key agency in the Trump agenda for getting the economy going again. That is undoing the Obama regulatory onslaught that was stopping investment in rural areas. It was driving manufacturing out of the country and was stopping resource projects like mining. So EPA is really key, and Scott Pruitt has started all these things. But where I think his the person who's taking over is acting, Andrew Wheeler, that has been confirmed just this spring as the number 2, the deputy administrator.
Yeah.
What Andrew has before him now is how to get all of these unwinding and repealing all these rules done, because it's a long process. It takes several years to promulgate a rule, to get it on the books and finalized and litigated in court, and it takes just as long to undo it. So Scott Pruitt started all these things, but they all have to still be finished. And I think Andrew Wheeler, I've known him for a long time, a couple decades. He worked for a great American, Jim Inhofe, the senator from Oklahoma, when he was chairman of the Environment and Public Works Committee. Andrew worked his way through the ranks and became chief of staff to that committee. He later worked as a lawyer and lobbyist, and one of his principal clients was Bob Murray of Murray Energy, another truly great American like Jim Inhofe. So Andrew has a great pedigree. He's he's a staff guy who's devoted to getting stuff done by knowing the technical details and working through the process. So in fact, now that he's acting, I think things actually might start moving a little bit better and faster than they were with Pruitt, who was really concentrated on promoting the EPA agenda and selling it across the country. I think Andrew has less interest in that. He's much more interested in the internal workings of the EPA and moving things forward. That's
probably a good thing for right now to make sure those things stay in motion. Myron, thank you very much. Myron Ebell is at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. We'll be back in just a moment. That's